I woke up completely alone in the world, and that wasn't the scary part. I don't know if I'm dead, but I'm not alone anymore, and that's so much worse. It started in silence. A deep, bottomless silence that felt older than stone. I opened my eyes to a darkness that wasn't just the absence of light, but a physical presence, heavy and cold like a lead blanket. My first real thought was that my heart wasn't beating. I couldn't feel the familiar thump in my chest, the pulse in my neck, nothing. Just a hollow stillness inside me. A low, electric hum vibrated up through the soles of my feet. I looked down. I was naked, standing on a street paved with dark, slick cobblestones that reflected the sickly orange glow of sodium lamps overhead. On either side of me, identical concrete apartment blocks rose into a sky without a single star. They were brutal, functional things, pockmarked with hundreds of black, empty windows. I recognized the street, but in the way you recognize a photograph of a place you've never been. It was familiar and completely alien all at once. A breeze, thin and sharp as a razor, slid across my skin. I should have been freezing, but I felt nothing. The cold was just a fact, like the buildings or the starless sky. My body was just a vehicle, and the engine was off. There was nothing else to do, so I started walking. My bare feet made no sound on the stones. The only noise was the ceaseless hum of the lamps, a single droning note that I started to feel in my teeth. I walked down the center of the road, past block after identical block. There were no cars, no trash cans, no sign that anyone had ever lived here. It was a city built as a monument to emptiness. After what felt like an hour, I saw something that didn't belong. Drawn in bright yellow chalk on the pavement was a child's picture of a smiling sun. It was so out of place in this concrete tomb that I stopped and stared. A ghost of an ache in my chest. I kept walking. 10 minutes later, I saw it again. The exact same chalk sun in the exact same spot on the pavement. My mind stuttered. I stopped, turned, and walked back the way I came. I walked for 15 minutes, my pace quickening, a frantic energy beginning to bubble under my skin. And there it was again. The smiling chalk sun. I was in a loop. A knot in the thread of reality. The knowledge didn't bring panic, not yet. It brought a strange, detached curiosity. I was a rat in a maze designed by a god with a sick sense of humor. I kept walking, passing the sun again and again. I started noticing other things. Small, impossible details. A single ornate museum display case, the kind I used to guard on the night shift, stood pristine in the middle of an intersection, its glass empty and gleaming. Further on, a hospital gurney with a perfectly white sheet was parked against a wall, its wheels locked. Each time I completed a loop, the objects were still there, like permanent fixtures in my personal hell. The only thing that changed was the chalk sun. The 5th time I passed it, one of its rays was gone, wiped clean. The 6th time the smile was smudged, dragged into a grimace. A cold dread, the first real feeling I'd had, began to prickle at the base of my spine. The loop wasn't static. Something was here with me. It was changing things. It was playing with me. I don't know how many more loops I made. Time had melted into a single, continuous moment, punctuated by the sight of that degrading chalk drawing. The sun was eventually just a smeared yellow ruin on the pavement. It was then that I heard the new sound. It wasn't footsteps. It was a soft, dry shuffling. The sound of fine grit being dragged across stone. It came from behind me, slow and steady. I stopped breathing. The hum of the light seemed to get louder, filling my head until I thought my skull would crack. I stood frozen for a full minute, listening to the shuffling get closer. Shuff, drag, shuff, drag. Slowly, every muscle screaming in protest, I turned around. Far down the street, under one of the orange lamps, a figure stood. It had the shape of a person, but it was a hole in the world. A human-shaped patch of television static, churning and roiling silently. It had no depth, no features, just a shimmering void that seemed to drink the light around it. It wasn't black, it was absence. As I watched, it moved. It didn't walk. It glitched forward, covering 10 feet in a single, jagged instant, like a corrupted video file. The shuffling sound was the noise its non-existence made scraping against reality. Every instinct in my borrowed body screamed at me to run. I spun around and bolted, my bare feet slapping against the cold stones, the sound swallowed by the humming dark. I sprinted, my lungs burning with air I didn't need. I rounded a corner, skidding on the slick surface, and ran straight into a wall of cold. It was in front of me, the static man. It hadn't run, it had just arrived. Before I could scream, 2 more flickered into existence to my left and right. Another appeared behind me. I was boxed in. 4 holes in the universe, all silently churning. The air grew intensely cold, and a new sound filled my ears. It came from them. A high-frequency hiss, like white noise, but underneath it, I could hear whispers. A million different voices overlapping, speaking words in a language that was never meant for human ears. The sound scraped at the inside of my mind. They raised their arms. Their movements were jerky, unnatural. Their fingers were long, tapering points of fizzing static. They didn't reach for my skin. They reached for me. The one in front of me pushed its hand forward. There was no impact. Its fingers sank into my chest as if I were made of smoke. A cold that had no temperature spread through me, a void cold that extinguished everything it touched. I felt a memory tear loose. My 8th birthday, the taste of chocolate cake, the warmth of my mother's hand. It was pulled out of me, shredded, and turned into a handful of screaming static. I tried to fight, but my body wouldn't obey. Another one reached out, its hand phasing into my head. The memory of my first love, her laughter on a summer afternoon, was vacuumed out of my skull. It left a hollow ache where the joy used to be. They pulled me apart piece by piece, not my body, but my soul. Every memory, every hope, every fear, every tiny moment that made me Sian was unraveled and fed to the whispering static. The last thing I felt was them pulling away the image of my daughter's face the day she was born. I felt a single phantom tear slide down my cheek as the memory dissolved into nothing. And then there was only peace. A perfect, beautiful, empty peace. The humming stopped. The whispers stopped. There was no more fear, no more confusion. There was only the gentle, quiet fizz of the static that was now inside me. I raised my own arm, watching with placid curiosity as it shimmered, a churning void of beautiful, meaningless noise. Someone else is walking down this street now. I can hear their terror. I will wait for them by the chalk drawing. I will show them how wonderful it is to feel nothing at all.